would do to that man. He never should have trusted Cersei. You never should have either.
Death. You've got many faces. I look forward to seeing this one.
How long do we have? Before the sun comes up tomorrow. I wasn't a king, but you were.
The fact that Jon's real parents were who Jon's real parents were is not news to us at this point, but what we don't know is the way that Jon is going to take this. How's the explosion going to look?
Sam, as a brother of the Night's Watch, and Jon are more brothers than Bran and Jon ever really were. He knows it's going to hurt Jon, and it's going to shatter his whole worldview. For all they know, the Army of the Dead could attack the next day, and someone has to tell Jon before that.
He's being told something that he both knows is true and can't handle. So he tries to throw things in front of it to prevent him from having to deal with the truth of what he's being told. The thing he throws in front of it here is the fact that it means his father was lying to him his whole life.
You've never been a bastard. You are true heir to the Iron Throne.
The truth that Samwell tells Jon is probably the most incendiary fact in the entire world of the show. We chose to play the whole thing on Jon's face because as great a job as John Bradley is doing presenting this information, he's really just presenting information we know already.
Daenerys is our queen. She shouldn't be. It's treason. It's the truth.
Hi everyone, it's Charlie. We got our brand new Game of Thrones Season 8 Episode 2 trailer to break down. There's a whole bunch of new scenes. Obviously, they're still getting ready for the big battle. So if you're brand new to the channel, I'm doing Game of Thrones videos all season long. Be sure to subscribe to get all the videos. We're doing that HBO Now giveaway. All you have to do to enter is be a subscriber and leave a comment on the video. Obviously, careful for spoilers from Episode 1 if you haven't seen it yet, but we see Jaime facing the Alliance Council and Daenerys to answer for one, not only showing up without the Lannister army that he promised, but also answering for his past misdeeds. They're sort of taking him to task for all the terrible things that he's done, because right now he's basically surrounded with all the people who have been his worst enemies since Season 1 of the TV show. So now he's sort of trying to make good on his promises. I'm trying to do a good thing, so he has to explain that to them. You see him panicking as the scene goes on, just looking all over the place, looking at Bran, still freaked out from when he arrived. That was one of my favorite reunions during Episode 1. So he arrives, and they have this mirror moment from Season 1, Episode 1, where he pulls his helmet off and, shakes his golden locks, but this time he pulls his hood off and runs his hands through his hair again, but he's got so many more city miles on him. Look at how much older he looks from the pilot episode. Then Bran just gives him that creepy, calm stare as if he's piercing his soul with his eyes. Usually when Bran stares at someone during an episode, it implies that something bad is about to happen. Like when he stared at Daenerys, I wondered what it was that he was peering into the future, because remember, he has green sight, so he does have limited visions of the future, and he can see their past pretty easily as well. He's a little bit better at seeing the past than he is at seeing the future, because the future can change. But like we're all thinking about visions, Daenerys' vision of the House of the Undying, we'll see how much things can change and how much of it's predetermined. But I love Daenerys' speech there. Apparently Viserys told her all kinds of stories about the Kingslayer, the man who murdered our father, even though the Mad King deserved to die and was one of the most terrible people in history. It's a little bit weird that Daenerys is upset that he was killed. I think she's more upset about having to live in exile and being away from her home her entire life. Not so much that she loved her father. Like, I think she understands what a terrible person he was. But I think just in general, this is Jaime having to answer for all of his past misdeeds. Now, you look at Sansa, she's just kind of giving him a cold stare. I don't think that she had any really bad encounters with him in King's Landing while she was trapped by the Lannisters. I think it's more by association, because she probably knows what was going on between Jaime and Cersei, at least by this point, even if she didn't know it at the time. If there's any Lannisters that she has a grudge against, though, it would be Cersei. She's the one that she's mostly focused on, because she used to idealize Cersei. She wanted to be the queen, but now she knows the truth of things. Remember back during Season 1 too, she was so smitten with Jaime because he was quote-unquote Prince Charming, but then obviously the big twist by the end of the episode is that he's sleeping with his sister and he tried to kill Bran. Nikolai Coster-Waldau actually said something funny in the behind the scenes for the episode where he's like, if Bran tells everyone what I did, then I'm absolutely screwed. You notice Bran giving him the cold stare in the room here. Obviously, Bran doesn't hold a grudge anymore just because he sort of left behind a lot of that. I think he remembers his human life. But like when Jon Snow said, "You're a man now," and he basically tells him, "Not quite, like I'm not quite human anymore." Jon's kind of shaken by it. It's just a way to remind you that he sort of left those things behind, which is why he stops them in that moment and says, "We don't have time for this. The army of the dead's coming. They have a dragon." You see Tyrion over on the side here with a worried look on his face. "Please don't feed my brother to the dragons." Then there's the scene with Daenerys and Sansa dealing with the aftermath of that and what they're going to do now that they know that Cersei isn't sending any help. When they sort of shade each other for trusting things that Cersei says, I'm not sure why Daenerys is mad at Sansa, because Sansa's big thing during episode 1 was taking Tyrion to task for believing Cersei. So it's not clear if there's something that Cersei said that Sansa believed. Maybe she's talking about things that happened earlier on the show during season 1, season 2. Everyone's in their new outfits except for Tyrion, Jorah, and Varys. Sansa has her special new leather armor on. It's a huge upgrade, and Daenerys has her new red fur dress. We get the Arya voiceover from the original trailer, Death Has Many Faces. I look forward to meeting this one, talking about the Night King and the White Walkers holding up that dragonglass dagger. You see Gendry forging more dragonglass weapons. The Stark soldiers, the Dothraki Blood Riders, the Knights of the Vale, the Unsullied all making their preparations. It seems like they're testing this ballista or trebuchet in the daylight, just getting ready because it's before the actual battle. Because the battle itself doesn't seem like it starts till nightfall, just based on the previous trailer footage we've seen. Like when the White Walker's horse walks up into frame, it's fully night by that point. You see that Samwell has already given Ser Jorah Heartsbane. I wonder what that conversation is going to be like. "Sorry about yesterday and telling you about your parents. Sorry my queen Daenerys burned them alive. Can I borrow that Valyrian sword, by the way, if you're not going to be using it during this big battle?" We haven't really had any moments between the Little Bear and Ser Jorah yet, because remember, there's all that he fled Ned Stark's justice because he was slaving his people. So the North remembers the Little Bear is sort of like Team Mean Girls this season. Ser Jorah is on my death predictions list, but if he were to survive, it'd be interesting to see if he just continues trying to serve Daenerys or if he would ever want to go home. But because he's so devoted to her, I think that as long as he's living and breathing, he'll just continue to stay by her side and serve her in whatever way he can. There's a shot of Daenerys entering the crypts of Winterfell to go talk to Jon Snow. Obviously, he's still shook by the news of his true parentage. I do think that Daenerys learns the truth during this episode at some point. He probably tells her. It'll probably cause all kinds of problems for their relationship and make things within the alliance that much more tense before the big battle. But then there's a shot of Arya testing out the dragonglass arrows. I think it's a nice callback to the pilot episode when she was showing up Bran and the other Stark children in the yard, just being a really amazing shot. Jon Snow talking to Tormund before nightfall, who's just arrived with the rest of his band of wildlings and probably the Night's Watch as well, telling them all about the Night King's abstract art installation, the fact that they're coming. There were a lot of people that were curious about what exactly that message means, what the symbol means, because it keeps recurring. The Night King has been making it since season 1 of the show, so I'll probably do a separate video about that later this week. Then Jon Snow, this seems like Ed in the middle and Samwell on top of the wall because they were all members of the Night's Watch and they stood atop of the wall back during season 1. So it's a nice callback to them being brothers of the Night's Watch. They're literally watching the Night move in, as in the Night King. So just a lot of visual metaphors and callbacks to season 1 of the show, just like we saw during episode 1. Ser Jorah riding into formation on his horse with Heartsbane attached to his hip. Grey Worm saying goodbye to Missandei. Grey Worm is also on my death predictions list, but the actor who plays him said that he would have a very unsettling storyline, so I'm wondering if he's one of the characters that they raise as a white, like one of the good characters that we've been following this whole time, that then turns around and becomes this undead zombie coming for the other heroes. That would be another great horror moment like the one that we got with Little Lord Umber at the end of episode 1. So everybody let me know in the comments which other main characters you think are going to come back as whites during one of these big battles. But then there's a shot of Daenerys with a really sad and worried look on her face. Maybe this is her either being worried about the big battle that's coming up, or maybe she's already found out about Jon Snow being a secret Targaryen. There's so many upsetting things that she could learn that would cause her to make this face. But then you see Jon Snow in the yard in his new outfit preparing for battle. Then Tyrion at night before the battle starts peeking his head over the walls, which is a nice mirror for his scenes during Blackwater back during season 2. Too bad this time they don't have a crap ton of wildfire to unleash on the Night King's army. The really interesting thing I think we all need to pay attention to in this episode is Tyrion's storyline as well, because what happened during Blackwater, he saved the city with his wildfire plan, but then didn't get any credit for it. So, because everybody has been hating on him and he's been making so many bad decisions, what might wind up happening is that he has a great idea for defending Winterfell, but because he looks like such a fool, Cersei not bringing her reinforcements and him just doubling down on that so much, maybe they don't listen to him and something terrible happens, and it just winds up leading him down this darker path this season, because we're sort of seeing the downfall of Tyrion. Like, he used to be super clever, he was amazing the first couple of seasons, super witty. The last couple of seasons, he's just been making one bad call after another, so this just seems like it's going to be the next step in that descent. So pay special attention to what's going on with Tyrion during the episode. But then there's that scene of Jon Snow and Samwell talking about treason, Daenerys, Jon Snow's true parentage. It all gets tied up in the idea of fixing the realm after they're all done. Remember how Tyrion, Varys, and Davos were talking about the solution. Well, the best thing to do would just be to get the two of them married. The only thing that's complicating that right now is that Jon is a secret Targaryen, and getting over the fact that she's really his aunt. Is he comfortable with that? How are they going to handle that going forward? I think the main idea here is that they love each other, so eventually they'll move past it, and yes, they will eventually get married at some point, either during the season or in the future of the show if they don't do some giant jump forward in time. But short term, it's just meant to cause a bunch of drama and chaos within the alliance, because, remember, they took him to task for bending the knee. We named you King in the North. You're supposed to be our king, so if the North found out that he were the true heir to the Iron Throne, they would probably be even more upset with Daenerys for trying to assert her claim, so it's all just meant to complicate things as we head into this giant, huge battle. Let me know in the comments what you guys are most excited about for episode 2. What'll happen is I will do a Q&A video tomorrow, so leave any questions in the comments that you want me to include in that, and there'll be some more bonus videos later this week. Congratulations to the giveaway winner from my last big video, Ryan Brown. Please email me